A woman's silhouette appeared through the gray veil of coming snow. No horse, no supplies, just a threadbare coat and boots worn clean through at the heel. Cole Dawson stood in his doorway, watching her. She was climbing the last stretch of ridge toward his ranch, a place so remote folks said it was the last stop before nowhere. The wind cut sharp across the Montana grassland, carrying the first real bite of winter. And it was a mean bite. She didn't stumble. She didn't pause to catch her breath, even on the incline. She just kept coming. When she reached his porch, she didn't hesitate. She knocked 3 times. Firm. Even. Not the knock of someone begging. The knock of someone here for business. Cole opened the door. The wind howled past him, trying to get inside where it was warm. She was younger than he'd first thought. Late 20s, maybe 30. Dark hair pulled back, a severe face, wind-whipped and lean. But it was her eyes that held him. They held something he recognized, the particular bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd run out of choices. But not determination. "I'm looking for work," she said. No preamble, no apology for the hour or for the storm she'd brought with her. "What kind of work?" Cole asked, his voice rough from disuse. "Any kind you'll give me. I can cook, mend, clean. I learn fast." Cole studied her hands. He dropped his gaze to them, and she didn't pull them away. They weren't soft, but they weren't ranch hard either. City hands, maybe, or town hands. Hands that had done some work, but not this kind of work. Not the kind that broke you. "Why here?" he asked. It was the only question that mattered. She met his gaze. "Because you're far enough from town that maybe you need help, more than you need gossip." That almost made him smile. Almost. His housekeeper, old Mrs. Gable, had quit 3 weeks back. Said the isolation and the silence drove her half mad. Said the ranch was haunted. Winter was closing in fast. He needed someone to handle the house while he handled the stock. If he didn't, the winter would win. But hiring a strange woman, a woman who showed up alone at dusk, out of a snowstorm, with no horse and no story. It was asking for trouble. Still, there was something in the way she stood. Shoulders back, despite the cold. Pride without arrogance. She was a frozen pillar. "You'll find more than wages here," he said finally, a warning. "Work starts before dawn. Days are long. And this land don't suffer fools." He narrowed his eyes. "I don't abide quitting, and I sure don't abide charity." "I don't take charity," she replied, her voice as crisp as the air. "Just honest work for honest pay." He nodded slowly. This was a risk, a massive risk. "Can you handle stock? Chickens?" "I can learn what I don't know," she said, "and I don't break easy." The snow was falling harder now. Thick flakes, the kind that meant business, the kind that buried things. If he turned her away, she'd never make it back to town before dark. She wouldn't even make it to the creek. And even Cole Dawson, hard as the land had made him, couldn't live with that. "Bunkhouse is out back," he said, turning away from the door. "Stove works. Blankets are clean. We'll talk terms in the morning." She nodded once. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Cole grumbled. "You might regret this come sunrise." He showed her the way. A small building, 50 yards from the main house, plain and functional. 1 room, 1 window, 1 stove. She stepped inside without complaint, set her small pack on the cot. It was barely a pack at all, more like a cloth sack. "Name's Cole Dawson," he said from the doorway, silhouetted. "Clara Brennan." "Well, Mrs. Brennan." "It's just Clara," she interrupted, her voice sharp for the first time. "And I'm widowed." He nodded. He understood more than she'd said. Widowed and alone meant questions. Questions meant judgment. Judgment meant running. "Just Clara, then," he said. "See you at dawn." He walked back through the snow to the main house, his boots crunching on the first layer of winter. Inside, he lit the lamp and stared at the empty kitchen. The table set for one. The silence that had been his only companion for 3 years. He wondered what she was running from. He wondered if he'd just made a terrible, terrible mistake. But mostly, he wondered why her eyes reminded him so much of his own. Hollow, in all the places grief had carved them out. Outside, the snow fell harder, covering her tracks, like the land itself was keeping a secret. She emerged from the bunkhouse in total darkness, his breath clouded in the freezing air, fingers clumsy on unfamiliar saddle straps. Cole watched from the barn door. He'd been there for an hour, waiting. It was 4 in the morning, 3 days since she'd arrived. He hadn't told her when to start work. He just said dawn. Most folks would have slept until sunrise, until they saw a sliver of light and called that early enough. But here she was, in the pitch black, trying to figure out which leather strap went where. He let her struggle for a full minute. He wanted to see if she'd quit. She didn't. She just swore softly, unbuckled the whole mess, and started again. "That's a bridle," Cole's voice cut through the dark. "Not a halter. Horse don't need it for mucking stalls." She turned, startled but not embarrassed. He saw her chin lift. "Then I'll use the halter." Feeds in the bin by the door, 2 scoops per animal. Water troughs need breaking if they're iced over. She nodded and got to work. Cole returned to his own tasks. 40 head of cattle to check. A fence line to walk, looking for drifts. Hay to distribute before the ground froze solid and the animals starved. He worked with the grim efficiency of a man who'd done these things 10,000 times. Alone. At noon, he came back, half frozen and expecting to find the job half done. He stopped. The stalls were mucked. Every one. The water troughs were hauled and full. And a section of split-rail fence by the corral, one he'd been meaning to fix for a month, was mended. Mended with spare wire and pure, stubborn determination. He found her carrying another bucket of water from the pump. Her hands were wrapped in torn strips of cloth. Blood was seeping through. "That's enough for today," he called out. She didn't stop. "The fence by the north pasture needs attention, too." "I said that's enough." His voice was sharper this time. She set the bucket down, straightened her back. Her face was wind-burned and tired, but she didn't argue. She just nodded and walked back to the bunkhouse. That evening, Cole set 2 plates, one in the kitchen for her, one in the dining room for himself. He cooked a stew, thick with potatoes and a little venison. He made bread. He made coffee strong enough to strip rust. He left her plate on the kitchen table with a clean cloth, and he went to eat alone. The division was clear. He was the rancher. She was the help. That was how it had to be. But as he ate in the cold, empty dining room, he kept listening for the sound of the kitchen door. He heard nothing, just the wind and the silence. Near midnight, the wolves came. Cole woke instantly, not to a sound, but to a wrongness. Then the chickens started screaming. He scrambled for his boots, grabbed his rifle from the wall. He stumbled into the yard, heart pounding, expecting a massacre. And he stopped. Clara stood by the henhouse, in her nightgown and coat, and she was holding his spare rifle, the one he kept in the barn. Firelight from the barn lantern, which she'd somehow had time to light, painted her in orange and shadow. 3 wolves circled in the darkness just beyond the fence, their eyes reflected like hellish gold coins. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't screaming. She was waiting. She fired a warning shot into the air. The crack of the rifle split the night. The wolves scattered back, but they didn't flee. They were hungry. Winter did that. Made predators desperate. Cole moved beside her without a word. He grabbed a torch from the barn, lit it from her lantern, and hurled it toward the pack. She fired again, this time closer, kicked up dirt right at the lead wolf's paws. He added his own shot. Together they made enough noise and fire and fury to finally drive the pack back into the hills. When the silence returned, it was heavier than before. They stood side by side in the cold, rifles lowered, breath visible in clouds. "You know how to shoot," Cole said. "It wasn't a question. My father taught me before he died." Her voice was quiet. "Said a woman alone needs to know how to stand her ground." He glanced at her. The nightgown was thin. Her feet were bare in unlaced boots. She was shaking. Cold or adrenaline. Maybe both. But she hadn't run. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't even come to get him. She just grabbed the gun and did what needed doing. "Come hell or high water," she said, so softly he barely heard it. "Those chickens are staying alive." That almost made him smile. Almost. "Get some rest," he said. "They won't be back tonight." She nodded and walked toward the bunkhouse, the rifle still in her hands. Cole stood alone in the yard, watching her go. Somewhere in the distant hills, the wolves howled, a sound as lonely and old as the wind. He looked at the henhouse, safe, then back at the dark shape of the bunkhouse. Maybe, he thought, he hadn't made a mistake after all. Or maybe he'd just made a much, much bigger one. Cole rode into the town of Redemption under a sky the color of old iron. He knew the town's eyes would be sharper than the wind. It was Sunday. He needed supplies. Flour, coffee, nails, lamp oil, the usual. He needed them before the next storm hit, the one the sky was promising. He tied his horse outside the general store and stepped into the warmth. Martha Doyle stood behind the counter, sorting mail. She was the town's eyes and ears. She looked up, smiled briefly, then glanced past him, toward the door, as if she was expecting someone else. "Morning, Cole." "Martha," he said. He put his list on the counter. "Heard you hired a woman," she said. Her voice was carefully neutral. Too neutral. Word traveled fast, faster than snow, faster than truth. "Needed a housekeeper," Cole said, his voice flat. "She needed work." Martha nodded slowly, gathering his items. Her hands moved, but her eyes were on him. "Folks are talking, Cole. Folks always talk. You know how it is. A single man, a single woman, living on the same property." "In separate buildings," Cole interrupted. His voice was hard. "And it ain't anybody's business but mine." Martha's mouth thinned. She didn't argue. She knew that tone. She wrapped his goods in paper, tied them with string. 60 cents. He paid, took the bundle, turned to leave. And Warren Kent stood in the doorway. He was blocking the exit. Kent was a banker. Thin as a rail, sharp as broken glass. He owned half the mortgages in town, and he owned most of the moral outrage. "Dawson," Kent said. He didn't move. "Kent, heard you've got a woman up at your place." "I've got a housekeeper. Is that what you're calling it?" Kent smiled. It was a smile without warmth, a smile that assessed and condemned. "She that kind of woman?" Cole's jaw tightened. He could feel the heat rising in his neck. "She's the kind that works hard and minds her own business," Cole said, his voice low and dangerous. "You might try the same." "A man's reputation matters, Dawson, especially out here. People talk, and talk. Talk becomes truth. Then people should mind what they say." Kent finally stepped aside, but his cold smile stayed put. "Just friendly advice, Cole. Wouldn't want folks getting the wrong idea. Wouldn't want trouble finding its way up to your ridge." It sounded less like advice and more like a threat. Cole walked past him into the cold. He loaded his supplies. Then he made one more stop. The dry goods shop. He bought a woman's winter coat, medium size, wool-lined, practical, dark gray. The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow. Cole stared him down. The shopkeeper said nothing. Cole rode home under that iron sky, the coat tied behind his saddle. Back at the ranch, he found Clara in the main house. He'd given her a key for firewood access. She sat at the kitchen table, reading by lamplight. A worn Bible lay open in front of her. The pages were thin as onion skin. She looked up when he entered, startled, scared. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine," he cut her off. He set the supplies down on the counter. Then he pulled the coat from the bundle. He tossed it on the table. It landed with a soft thump next to her Bible. "First, snow's coming hard. You'll need this." She stared at the coat, just stared, like it was a snake, like it might vanish. Slowly, so slowly, she reached out, touched the fabric. "I can't pay you back for this," she said quietly. Her voice was thick. "Didn't ask you to." "Then why?" Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time he saw something raw in them. Not exhaustion, not determination, confusion, hope, and the barest shimmering edge of tears. "Why are you kind to me?" she whispered, "when no one else is?" Cole paused. The words caught in his throat. He thought about Kent's cold smile, about Martha's judging eyes, about the whispers. "Maybe I know what it's like," he said finally. His voice was rough. "To need a place that doesn't ask questions." She held the coat against her chest. She held it like it was a shield. For a moment he thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just nodded, her throat working. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once, and left her there. He retreated to his own room. That night, lying in the dark, Cole thought about the town's whispers. He thought about Kent's cold smile, and his even colder advice. A man's word is his bond. His father used to say that. He'd made a promise when he let Clara stay. A promise to himself. It didn't matter what the town said. It didn't matter what Kent thought. Out here, a man handled his own business, and Clara Brennan. She was his business now, whether he'd planned it or not. In the bunkhouse, Clara sat on her cot, the coat clutched in her hands. She didn't put it on. She just held it. For the first time since leaving Missouri, she felt something other than cold, and it terrified her. The ranch settled into a rhythm. It was a rhythm older than words. Work, silence, shared meals, eaten in separate rooms. The slow, aching thaw of two frozen souls. 6 weeks passed. November surrendered to December. The snow came, and it stayed. The world turned white and quiet. Clara learned the ranch's language, the particular creak of the frozen gates, the huff and steam of cattle waiting for hay, the way the silence deepened just before more snow. Cole taught her to rope. He didn't speak much. He just showed her how to coil the lasso, how to read an animal's movement, how to throw with her shoulder, not her arm. She practiced for hours, on fence posts, on stray logs. She missed more than hitting. Her hands got raw, but she never quit. One evening, they were in the barn, mending harnesses by lantern light, the smell of leather and hay and cold. Clara began to hum. It was a simple melody, old as dirt. A hymn. Cole paused, his hands still on the leather. He listened. "What's that song?" She stopped. "Something my mama taught me. 'Come, thou fount,' it's called. Sing it proper." She looked at him. Then, her voice soft and clear in the barn's quiet, she sang. When she finished, the silence that followed was different. Cole nodded once. "Your mama had good taste." "She did," Clara said, "about most things." They worked in silence after that. But it was a different kind of silence. It was companionable. The pipes froze on a Tuesday. Cole discovered it at dawn. No water in the kitchen. ice blocking the pump line. He swore under his breath. The repair would take days. Days of melting snow on the stove, days of hauling water from the creek. He found Clara feeding the chickens. Main house pipes are frozen solid. I can fix them, but it'll take time. She just nodded, expecting the work to get harder. You're welcome to use the spare bedroom, he said, not looking at her. Until it's sorted. Warmer than the bunkhouse, and the pump in there. It still works. She hesitated. Her breath clouded in the cold. People already talk, Mr. Dawson. People always talk. Question is whether you freeze to death caring about it. I'm not that kind of woman, she said quietly. Her chin was high. I know, Cole replied. His voice was gentle. And I'm not that kind of man. He finally met her eyes. This is about survival, Clara, not scandal. She searched his face, looking for something, reassurance maybe, or proof of honor. Whatever she found, it must have been enough. She nodded. That evening she moved into the spare bedroom. It was small, a simple bed, a chair, a washstand. But it was inside. It was warm. With a fire crackling in the main room, they ate supper together, at the kitchen table. For the first time, venison stew, biscuits, coffee. This is good, Cole said. You sound surprised. A tiny smile played at her lips. Little bit. My mama taught me to cook before she taught me hymns, Clara said. Said a woman needed to feed bodies and souls both. She sounds like she was wise. She was. Clara's voice went soft. Died when I was 16. Fever took her in 3 days. Cole nodded. Loss was a language they both spoke. After supper, they sat by the fire, not talking, just listening to the logs crack and settle. Outside, the wind howled. It sounded like it wanted in. Don't fence me in with what folks might say, Cole said after a long while, staring into the flames. Out here, we handle our own. Clara looked at him across the firelight. You really believe that? Have to, he said. Otherwise, we're just living by other people's rules, in a place they'll never even set foot. She nodded slowly. I like that. They sat until the fire burned low. Neither wanted to break the quiet. When Clara finally rose to go to bed, she paused in the hallway. Cole, yeah, thank you for letting me stay, for not making me feel like a burden. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. After she left, he sat alone in the dark, staring at the embers. Something was growing here, in the silence, something fragile and precious. He didn't know what to call it. He didn't know if it had a name, but he knew it scared him, because the last time he'd let himself care about someone, the land had taken her away, and he wasn't sure he could survive that again. Some silences are restful, others are full of the names we don't say aloud. Christmas week arrived with a bitter, biting cold, a stillness that felt like held breath. Clara baked bread, the house filled with the smell of yeast and warmth. Cole found himself in the workshop. He carved a small wooden bird from a piece of pine scrap. A simple thing, but his hands remembered the work from years before. They decorated sparsely, a few pine boughs over the mantel, candles in the windows. Neither of them mentioned the missing stockings, the absent laughter, the names that should have been spoken but weren't. On Christmas Eve, Clara set 2 plates at the kitchen table, roasted chicken, potatoes, carrots from the root cellar. They ate quietly. The meal was good, but it was haunted. Afterward, Cole hung the small wooden bird on the mantel. Clara stared at it. That's beautiful. Made one for my daughter, he said. The words came out rough, rusty. Before she was born, never got to give it to her. The words hung in the air, heavy as smoke. Clara's hand went to her throat. I had a daughter too. Cole looked at her, waited. Her name was Lily. Clara's voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. She was 4 when the fever took her. She paused, took a breath. My husband. He said I didn't pray hard enough. Said if I'd been a better woman, God wouldn't have taken her. That's a damn lie, Cole whispered. The town. They agreed with him. After she died, they looked at me, like I was cursed, like my grief was. My fault. She wrapped her arms around herself. So I left. I just walked. Walked until I couldn't walk anymore. And then I found your ridge. Cole's jaw tightened. He understood now, the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she worked like she was trying to earn back something that had been stolen. I had a wife, he said. His turn. Sarah. She died in childbirth. The baby, too. A boy. His voice went rough. Towns said I worked her too hard, said I should have gotten the doctor sooner. Maybe they were right. Were they? Clara asked. I don't know, he said, staring at the fire. I'll never know. They sat with that. 2 people, carrying guilt neither had earned, but both refused to set down. Maybe we're both just trying to outrun what we can't bury, Clara said softly. Maybe. Cole looked at her, really looked at her. Or maybe, he said, we're finally in a place where we don't have to run anymore. Her eyes met his, and something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the kind of connection that only happens between people who've walked through the same exact darkness. Cowboy up, Cole said quietly. Grieving's honest work, but it don't have to be done alone. Clara smiled. It was a small smile, fragile, but it was real. Is that what we're doing? Grieving together? Maybe, or maybe we're just 2 fools trying to figure out how to live again. They stayed by the fire until dawn, shoulder to shoulder, not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth, careful not to break the spell. When the sun rose on Christmas morning, the wooden bird caught the light. It cast a shadow on the wall, like wings. Clara reached out, touched it gently. Do you think they'd forgive us? For trying to be happy again? Cole thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made, about the way grief could become a prison, if you let it. I think, he said, they'd call us fools if we didn't try. She nodded, wiped her eyes. Outside, the snow sparkled, clean and white, covering everything old and broken with something new. For the first time in years, Cole Dawson felt something other than cold. He felt hope. The blizzard came like God's own fury, white and wild and endless. It hit 3 days after Christmas, a storm so fierce it turned day into twilight. It erased the world beyond the porch. Cole knew immediately they were in trouble. The cattle, he said, staring out the window. They're in the far pasture, 2 miles out. If they didn't bring feed, the herd would freeze, or starve. They'd huddle together and die. I'm going, he said. He was already loading the sled with hay bales. Not alone, you're not, Clara said. She was pulling on the coat he'd bought her. This isn't your fight, Clara. Stay inside. Those cattle feed us both, she said, her jaw set. That makes it my fight, too. She grabbed a rope. Besides, you taught me to rope. Time to see if I learned anything. Cole wanted to argue. He wanted to order her back inside, where it was safe. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the same look she'd had on the porch the day she arrived. She wasn't asking permission. She was stating a fact. Stay close, he growled. We lose sight of each other in this. We're both dead. They set out into the white. The wind hit like a fist. The snow was so thick, Cole couldn't see his own hands. They followed the fence line by feel, stumbling, gasping. The cold was so sharp it hurt to breathe. It felt like swallowing glass. It took 2 hours to reach the pasture, another hour to distribute the hay. They counted the cattle by touch, not by sight. 38 head, accounted for. 2 were missing. Probably dead in a drift, Cole shouted over the wind. We can't look for them. We go home. Now. On the way back, it happened. One moment, Clara was beside him. The next, the snow just gave way. She plunged through the ice, the creek. They drifted off the path. She vanished into the black, fast water beneath the surface. Clara! Cole lunged. He grabbed for her coat. His fingers found the wool. He hauled with everything he had. She came up gasping, sputtering, her eyes wide with shock. She was already shaking violently. Move, he shouted. He grabbed her arm. Keep moving or you die. Do you hear me? He pulled her forward, forced her legs to work. There was a line shack, a half-mile, a tiny shelter they used during calving season. If they could reach it, they had a chance. If not... They stumbled through the door. Clara's lips were blue. Cole stripped her wet clothes with shaking hands. He didn't think. He just acted. He wrapped her in every dry blanket he could find. He lit the pot-belly stove, stuffing it with dry kindling he kept there. She curled into a ball, shaking so hard her teeth chattered like stones. It wasn't enough. The fire was too slow. The cold was too fast. He stripped his own wet layers, and he got into the pile of blankets with her. Body heat, he said, his voice raw. It's the only way. He pulled her against him, held her, rubbed her arms, her back, anything to generate friction, to generate life. Stay awake, he ordered. Talk to me. Tell me about your mama's hymns. Anything. Just talk. Cold, she chattered. I know, but you're tougher than cold. Remember? You don't break easy. She pressed against him, shaking. He held her. I can't lose someone again, Cole whispered. He said it into her hair. The words escaped before he could stop them. Clara's hand, frozen and stiff, found his in the dark. She squeezed. You won't, she whispered. I promise. They stayed like that, through the night, wrapped in blankets and necessity, listening to the storm rage outside like a monster trying to get in. Nothing improper happened, but everything changed. When dawn came, gray and bitter, they dressed in silence. The air between them was charged, full of things unsaid. The trek home took 3 hours. They arrived half-frozen, exhausted, but alive. The ranch was intact, the chickens were safe, the house was standing, but the storm had passed, and the town's fury was just beginning. Warren Kent had heard that Cole Dawson and that woman had been missing, heard they'd been alone, for days, during the storm, trapped together, unchaperoned, scandalous. The wolves, Cole realized, weren't always four-legged. Sometimes they wore suits, sometimes they carried Bibles, sometimes they called themselves righteous, and they were circling close. Courage, Cole learned, isn't one big moment, it's 100 small choices, and he was failing every one of them. Warren Kent arrived at the ranch on a cold afternoon, 8 days after the blizzard. He rode up with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the moral high ground. Cole met him in the yard. Dawson. Kent didn't dismount. I'm here as a concerned citizen. Concerned about what, Kent? Your reputation. The town's reputation. And that. Woman's reputation. If she has any left. Cole's hands in his pockets curled into fists. Say what you came to say. You were alone with her, for 3 days, during the storm, in a line shack. No witnesses. Kent's smile was thin and sharp. People are talking. The church council is talking. And frankly, Cole, unless you do the right thing, you're going to find yourself with no credit, no trade, and no welcome anywhere in redemption. The right thing being what? Send her away. Let her work at the hotel in town. I've already spoken to them. They'll take her. For her sake as much as yours." Kent leaned forward in his saddle. "You're a good man, Dawson. Or you were. Don't ruin yourself over a woman nobody knows and nobody trusts." The words landed like stones. After Kent left, Cole stood alone in the yard. The wind cut right through him. He thought about Sarah. He thought about the promises he'd made to her. He thought about what the town had said when she died, how they'd judged him, blamed him, how they'd made him an exile in his own life. He'd spent 3 years rebuilding his name, 3 years earning back respect, and now it was all crumbling again. Because of her. That night he found Clara in the kitchen. She was mending his torn work shirt by lamplight. "We need to talk," he said. She set the needle down. Her face was guarded. "Maybe you should go to town," Cole said. He hated the words, hated the taste of them in his mouth. "Work at the hotel until spring for appearances." Clara went very still. "You're sending me away." "I'm trying to protect your reputation." "My reputation?" Her voice was ice. "My reputation died with my daughter. I thought you understood that." "I do, but you care more about what they think." She stood up, the shirt falling to the floor. "You care more about their gossip than what's true." "That's not fair, Clara." "Isn't it?" Her eyes were blazing. "You told me this place was different. You told me, out here we handle our own. You said a man's word is his bond. Clara, and you just broke yours." She walked to the spare room, started packing her small bag. Cole stood frozen, torn between fear and something he couldn't name. A man named Jasper, who'd been Cole's ranch hand for 6 months, appeared in the doorway. He'd been staying in the barn loft. He was quiet, but he saw everything. He was also Warren Kent's estranged younger brother. He'd heard everything. "You're really letting her go?" Jasper asked quietly. "It's complicated, Jasper." "No, it's not." Jasper's voice was hard. "You're scared. You're letting them win. You're letting him win, because you're scared of being alone again. You don't understand." "I understand you're a coward." Jasper turned to leave. Then he paused. "Your wife, Sarah, she was a good woman, kind, strong, honest. And if she could see you right now, letting that woman walk away because you're too afraid to stand up for her." He shook his head. "She'd be ashamed." The words hit like bullets. Jasper left. Clara finished packing. She walked past Cole, out the front door and toward the town. She didn't look back. Cole sat alone in the empty kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of everyone he'd ever failed. Outside, the wolves howled, distant, hungry, and patient. They always were. Cole Dawson walked into that church the way a man walks to his own hanging, certain of the outcome, but needing to say his piece first. It was Sunday morning. The entire town was packed into the small building, wooden pews, creaking under the weight of judgment and heavy wool coats. Reverend Mills was at the pulpit, mid-sermon, talking about integrity. Cole entered through the back door. Every head turned. He walked down the center aisle. His boots were loud on the floorboards. Martha Doyle gasped. Warren Kent sat in the front row. His face was carved from stone. Cole stopped at the front. He turned to face the congregation. "I have something to say," he announced. Reverend Mills blinked. "Mr. Dawson, this is highly irregular." "You all knew my Sarah," Cole's voice carried, clear and hard. "Good woman, good wife. When she died, you judged me. Some of you still do. Maybe that was fair, maybe it wasn't. But I learned something from it. Judgment's easier than mercy." He looked directly at Warren Kent. "There's a woman you've all been gossiping about. Her name is Clara Brennan. She works harder than any man in this room. She lost everything. Her child, her husband, her home, and she kept going. That's courage. That's strength. Mr. Dawson, Kent stood up, his voice oily with false concern. We are all sympathetic to her plight. But propriety matters. Does it? Cole cut him off. You sit here every Sunday. You talk about Christian charity, and then you tear apart a woman who's done nothing wrong. Nothing. Except survive. The room erupted in whispers. Cole raised his voice. Yes, I hired her. Yes, she lived on my property. And yes, I care for her. If that makes me shameful in your eyes, then judge me. But leave her be. He turned to go. Then he stopped. One more thing. We don't call for the law or the doctor out here. We handle our own. And I'm handling this. Any man has a problem with that. You know where to find me. He walked out, into the cold sunlight. His heart was hammering. Behind him, the church sat in stunned silence. Cole rode straight to the hotel. He found Clara in the small room they'd given her. It was barely bigger than a closet, a window that looked onto an alley. She stood when he entered. Her face was unreadable. I should have stood sooner, Cole said. I should have chosen you, over them, over their approval. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. And now? Clara searched his face, looking for the truth. Now, I'm choosing you, every day, come hell or high water. He took a breath. Come home, Clara. Not as my housekeeper, as my partner, in every way that matters. You mean that? I've never meant anything more in my life. Clara studied him. This man, this broken, stubborn man who'd finally found his courage. Slowly, she nodded. They rode back together, through the winter afternoon, side by side. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to build. Behind them, the town of Redemption buzzed with scandal. But ahead, the ranch waited, solid, and real, and home. Spring came slow, then all at once, the way hope does when you've stopped expecting it. April melted the snow. Green pushed through the dead grass. The creek ran clear and cold, no longer a trap, but a promise. Cole and Clara worked side by side, planting, mending, building. The town slowly warmed. Some apologized. Some stayed cold. Martha Doyle came out one Sunday. She brought a pot of stew and an awkward blessing. Jasper grinned and said he'd known all along. Warren Kent never apologized, but he stopped talking, and that was enough. One evening in late April, as the sun painted the hills gold, Cole led Clara to the ridge where he'd first seen her. I buried them here, he said quietly. He gestured to two simple wooden crosses. Sarah and the baby. Never gave the baby a name. Didn't seem right, somehow. Clara took his hand. My daughter's buried in Missouri, she said. I couldn't say goodbye, couldn't go back. They stood together in the wind, two people haunted by graves they couldn't visit. You think they'd forgive us? Clara asked. For choosing to live again. Cole thought about Sarah, her laugh, her strength, the way she'd loved this land. He thought about the child he'd never met, but mourned every day. I think, he said, they'd call us fools if we didn't. Clara smiled, tears on her cheeks. Then let's not be fools. They married the next week. A simple ceremony. Jasper and Martha as witnesses. No church, no crowd, just vows spoken under an open sky, with the land as their witness. Every good thing worth having comes the hard way, Cole said, sliding a simple band onto her finger. And you, ma'am, you were worth every hard step. Clara kissed him, soft and sure and full of promise. That night they stood at the threshold of the main house. The door was open wide. Golden light spilled onto the greening land. In the distance the wolves howled, not a threat anymore, just the wilderness singing its old song. Clara wore the winter coat. the one he'd given her that first week. It was warm now, and she didn't need it. She wore it because it meant something, because it was the first kindness, the first crack in the wall. Cole held her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. Inside, the small wooden bird hung on the mantel, catching the firelight, a symbol of fragile hope that had survived the winter. They stepped inside together. Behind them, the door closed, soft as a prayer. Ahead, the future stretched, uncertain and beautiful. A life built log by log, choice by choice, day by hard-won day, home earned, the way everything worth having is earned, through courage, through work, through standing up when it would be easier to fall, through love that refused to quit, even when the whole world said it should. The ranch settled into evening quiet, cattle lowing soft in the pasture, chickens roosting safe, the land breathing easy under a sky full of stars. Two people who'd been broken had built something whole, and that, Cole thought as he held his wife close, that was worth more than all the judgment in the world. Spring had come, and they were home. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of survival and justice, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.